I won't be there. I gotta wait until we're at the same time.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. This regular meeting of the Township Council is being held in accordance with the scheduled meetings of the Township Council established and adopted by Township Council, which scheduled designated time, date, and place of this meeting. Adequate public notice of this meeting has been provided pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. We are using an electronic amplifying and recording device in order to obtain a clear and audible record, and we request all those wishing to speak be recognized and state your name and address directly into the microphone. The recording device to be solely utilized by the Township Clerk's Office for the preparation of the minutes and shall be the official record of the Township Council meetings. Madam Clerk, may I have the roll call, please?
Mr. Hutchison?
Present.
Mr. Schmidt?
Present.
Mrs. Stubbs? Mrs. Winters? Here. Mr. Mignon?
He is away on vacation.
Mrs. Trotta? Here. Mr. Mercado?
Present.
Mr. Lackner? Chief Earl?
Here.
Mr. Parliament?
Here.
Mr. Cardis?
Here.
We have our first public portion. Before we do that, there are two add-ons that I approved this morning. They are yellow sheets. They're on the board, and they're also here in the front. They are resolutions for a bond anticipation note, refunding a bond anticipation note, and then also a redevelopment agreement. So if anyone would like to include that, if they don't have that or would like to speak on it, feel free to do so. But we'll open up the first public portion. Anyone wishing to speak, please raise your hand. Mr. Polidoro.
Good evening, Council. Ray Polidoro, Ariel.
Good evening.
Hope everyone enjoyed their Thanksgiving.
You as well.
Thank you. Glasses. Ordinance 16-18. What would be the reason that we need to have this particular ordinance? Why is
I'll
that
give you an
coming?
example. Recently, in the last 2 weeks, we had a fire one Friday on the 18th of November. One was in Loch Lomond and one was in Loch Scott at the same time. And this past week on Dunlin Way, we had a fire. What's happening at these fire scenes, you have individuals that are coming up with these fire board up or what do we call it?
Remediation.
Restoration type of businesses that show up there with their cards, and they're knocking on the doors of homeowners that have just lost their home. And so this puts a practice in place where these individuals would have to register with the municipality. They would also have to adhere to the fire marshal, the fire chief, whoever has the scene, who's responsible for the scene, and along with Gloucester Township Police, and permitting them access to the scene once it's been cleared. So that's what that ordinance is about.
Now, I should have brought it up with me, but did that not mention something to do with employees of police departments and fire? Did I read that correctly?
Let me take a look at that.
This is on first reading. There is a second reading of public hearing, as you well know. I don't know what do you mean. When I drafted it, you referred to police officers and fire officials.
Now, the only thing is on Section E, no person subject to the terms of this section shall interfere with, hinder, or obstruct any member of the Gloucester Township Fire Departments, Police Department, EMS, and other emergency service personnel from performing their duties in accordance with the general protection, health, and welfare of the residents of the Township of Gloucester.
Okay. Do we know specific companies, entities
None have been brought to my attention that have been involved with it, but this is something that was brought up to our fire districts and I believe also to the police department.
Okay. Is there any known elected or public officials that are participating in this practice?
I'm unaware of it. Do you have some information that you want to provide to us, Mr. Polidoro?
I think that the township has a pretty good idea of where this is being done.
Say anything, Mr. Polidoro?
That's not my position to say so. I think the
So you're
township.
asking questions you know the answers to, Mr. Polidoro.
Yeah, I think you know the answers to as well, but I'll leave it at that.
Speculation. Thank you.
Okay. The state also has a statute that provides for local government employees and what have you participating in that function. If that were to be the case and the township were to discover that being the case, how would the township react to that?
Well, let me ask you a question. You say that the state has legislation and a statute that addresses this type of incident?
Not this particular one, but it basically what this is doing is, let's say an officer or a firefighter or something like that that is at a fire scene or a scene similar, where they would have specific knowledge to that and
Knowledge to what?
of this fire scene where the public may not necessarily know about it. Are there not time periods within the state statute, within a 24-hour period, that the statute has that the township does not have?
Well, the reason I'm asking, and the council can respond, but the reason I'm asking is because we consider several different variations of this type of regulation. And there's nothing in the state statute that we've been able to locate that regulates it. So we searched the surrounding towns for the type of ordinance. Some towns just do an RFQ and they try to control through an RFQ. Some towns do like this ordinance does. We talked about a rotation similar to a towing ordinance, but I felt that was an interference with free trade because there's a statutory legislation that allows towers to be on a rotation list. There's not anything that controls restoration companies, so you don't draft an ordinance that has a constitutional issue of interfering with free trade. So this is what we've been able to recommend to the governing body and council to adopt. You know the state statute. Please give it to the clerk so she can get it to me for review.
Okay, I have extra copies in the back now. Is it not the Consumer Division of Ethics or governing agency that has some type of time restriction regarding, and you may know better than I, 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. within a 24-hour period after a fire or flood or something to that effect that individual residents could be approached?
I'm not familiar with that. So I'm saying if you have something that you feel that the governing body should look at between now and second reading, get it up here, we'll review it. If something that has merit, we will submit it to council to consider an amendment. This is only first reading. But so if you have knowledge or information that you want us to consider, get it into the clerk and she'll get it to my office.
Okay, and the second reading would be scheduled for the second Monday of next month, correct? Or is there one meeting in December?
No, 2 meetings.
Okay.
So it'll be the 12th.
All right, thank you.
Is that an administrative code, or is that the statute that you're referencing?
For which?
The 6 p.m. to 8 a.m.?
I believe that there's the State Consumer Advocacy. I have the article. I think that went out in the Courier Post back in 2014, and it looked like there was a restrictive time, and I was curious to see whether that was something that was implemented in the ordinance, which is there. I'll bring that back up with me and allow you to see that. So
Well, get it to the clerk beforehand so that I can review it, make appropriate recommendation to council, or better respond to your questions.
will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Seeing none, close the first public portion, waive the reading and accept the minutes.
Regular meeting November 14th, 2016.
Is there a motion?
Second.
On the question, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Stubbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Reynolds? Abstain. Mrs. Strata?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Bids?
Lakeview Drive Bridge Guide Rail Replacement.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
On the question? Roll call, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Stubbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next, we have an ordinance of the first reading. There will be a public portion, a public hearing at the second reading regarding the following four ordinances. Ordinance 0-16-16 is an ordinance amending Chapter 73, Section 73A, entitled Street Address Numbering of the Code of the Township of Gloucester for the redesignation of Hillcrest Avenue, Hilltop to Hillcrest Lane within the Township of Gloucester, Canaan County, State of New Jersey. We have two Hillcrest Lanes that are located probably within a mile and a half of each other. Hilltop Avenue off the old Black Horse Pike in Hilltop, and then Hillcrest Avenue, which is also in Blackwood Estates. So this is renaming Hillcrest Avenue to Hillcrest Lane. The residents of that street have approached us with a petition, and we have granted, we are seeking to redesignate the street to Hillcrest Lane. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
On the question. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Stubbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Ordinance 0-16 is an ordinance creating Chapter 80 of the Code of the Township of Gloucester entitled Crane Regulations, which would require a permit to operate a crane in the Township of Gloucester. This provides a licensing of crane operators in a matter of public safety that they would have to seek a permit. This is mirroring legislation that was passed by the state of New Jersey. Now, we don't have many cranes here in the Township of Gloucester, but this is more of a housekeeping, but also keeping up with this, the legislation that was passed by the state of New Jersey for crane regulations. I entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the question? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Stubbs? Yes. Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Ordinance 0-16-18, ordinance of the Township Council, ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Gloucester, amending Chapter 67A, Article 4 of the property maintenance. This ordinance will set terms or guidelines for canvassers or vendors who are trying to provide services to vacant and fire damaged structures within the Township of Gloucester, in order to minimize the negative impact that they would have on those structures, but also putting in place registration certifications, proof of insurance and fees, a registration certificate, and adhering to guidelines set forth that they do not interfere or hinder or obstruct our fire departments, the police department, EMS, and emergency service personnel from doing their duties. I entertain a motion.
Make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the question. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes, but Ray, please get us the information so that we can check it.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Stubbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. 0-16-19 is ordinance authorizing execution of a tax abatement agreement between the Township of Gloucester and RRA-Colony Partners LLC for premises Block 8401, Lot 10, pursuant to C 441 PL 1991 and ordinance number 0-9-23. This is a tax abatement for Colony Senior Apartments. It's a 55 and over community located on Chiefs Landing Road. There's two buildings of 64 units for 55 and older community. They're eligible for an abatement under our ordinance. They filed the proper paperwork. The total assessed property is $5.7 million, well, close to $5.8 million. It's a 5-year tax abatement starting 2017 and ending in December 31st of 2021. And they will continue to pay land taxes. Once again, they pay taxes on the land full freight. The abatement is only on the improvements. So full freight, the land taxes is $32,000 a year. I entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the question. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Stubbs? Yes. Mrs. Winters? Yes. Mrs. Strato?
Yes.
Mr. Mercado?
Yes. Next, we have our consent agenda. Any council person that would like to remove any of the items, please speak up. Hearing none, I entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
So moved. Second?
Thank you. On the question, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Stubbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Warner? Yes. Mrs. Trotter?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes. Next, we have two add-ons, as I stated at the beginning of the meeting. Resolution 16, colon 11-322. It's a resolution of the Township of Gloucester in the County of Camden, New Jersey, authorizing the issuance and sale of up to $533,330 of refunding bond anticipation note to the township, making certain covenants to maintain the exemption from federal income taxation of interest on said notes, and authorizing such further actions and making such determinations as may be necessary or appropriate to effect the issuance and sale of said notes. In layman's terms, we had taken out bonds to pay for the cost of the expenses that were associated with the June 23rd, 2015 storm that we had here. That was approved, introduced as an ordinance in November 2015. And after a public hearing, they were adopted. Anticipation notes is essentially, it's interim financing for an emergency or for a capital project. So this fell under emergency financing. We needed this to help with our budget last year due to the storm. Tom, do you want to add anything to it?
No, that's correct. It's actually a note that's taken out. It starts as a 3-year note. We're going into the second year of the 3-year period. So what this is allowing us to do is we're going to receive bids on the next note that will cover 2/3 of the original amount of money. I forget what the original was. I think it was close to $1.4 million. And again, this will allow us to be on schedule with the note. This was actually supposed to be on the this.
I entertain a motion to accept the resolution.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
On the question, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Stubbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Warner?
Yes.
Mrs. Trotter?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes. Resolution R16:11-323, resolution of the Township of Gloucester, County of Camden, New Jersey, naming a redeveloper for 533 Cross Keys Road, Block 18403, Lot 20 area, and authorizing the signing of a redevelopment agreement. This is the Nike site. Earlier in the year, there was a retailer, a European retailer called Lidl, L-I-D-L, who had expressed an interest in purchasing a portion of the Nike site. This agreement is for close to 5 acres. Lidl made a presentation last Monday at a redevelopment meeting here. It's a 36,000 square foot supermarket. The amount of employees that they will employ, part-time, full-time, is close to 40. And it's located, it would border Burling Cross Keys Road and Williamstown, Williamstown Road. Thank you. Appreciate it. So this is to make them the redeveloper of that 5-acre block. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? On the question? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Hutchison?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Stubbs?
Yes.
Mrs. Warner?
Yes.
Mrs. Trotter?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes. We did not receive any eGov access emails. We'll open up the second public portion. Anyone wishing to speak, please raise your hand. Ms. Grace. Ms. Schatz, I'm sorry.
I don't have to be doing it, I didn't really come on. But I'm here representing Brittany Woods for Action Committee, and I'm just giving you an update.
Ms. Schatz, can we have your address first before you speak?
Pardon me?
Can I have your address, please?
29 Brookshire Road,
Thank you.
Fairville, New Jersey, 08081. And I'm here to give an update. Carol Race is out of town. So we gave out our flyers for the leaf collection for December 5th, 6th, and 7th. That was a success. And we also discussed the recycling. Are you guys still going to do it every 2 weeks, she wants to know?
I had spoken to the executive director of the NUA, and it was in conversations with the mayor and the NUA that they were going to pick up recycling every week.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand as well is that Public Works went into Brittany Woods last week, their Clean
Yes, they
Communities,
did.
and picked up some TVs that were laid there. A couple of us were in your neighborhood 2 weeks ago, and we noticed the TVs. And what I was told, as soon as the TVs were picked up, there were some more TVs put out there. So we have to be vigilant and continue to go to that neighborhood. And if there's things that have to be picked up, we ask that your neighbors contact Public Works.
Oh, yes, that's a problem. And we were also discussing mailboxes. We noticed that we were giving out the flyers for the leaf pickup. I mean, people's mailboxes are on the ground, they're either leaning to the side. So we were going to reach out to different organizations, see if they can donate mailboxes and have them installed so that it makes the development look a lot better. We can get that done. It's a project. Okay, I'm just giving you an update on our projects and what we discussed. And also they wanted to know about the easements behind the houses, behind our fenced-in areas, those throughways, whatever you want to call them. Is the township going to clean them up? Or is it up to the resident who owns that house, or how is that going to be taken care of?
Those easements, I don't believe that they are township easements.
It might be for fire lane easements.
Mhm.
Fire lane easements.
Mm-hmm.
So I would tend to think they're property owner responsibility.
Mm-hmm. So that's like a project, you go out there, get some people together and start cleaning it up ourselves? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then we were talking about Martin Luther King, getting the kids involved. That's a project we're still working on. Contacting the different schools to see what they have going on that day. And, hopefully have the school send out a notice or something from the school to the kids that live in Brittany Woods if you would like to come and participate. Because I looked up on your website, Gloucester Township has a ton of things going on for Martin Luther King's birthday. As far as, committees and participating and stuff like that. So we're working on that too.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
that website will be active either Thursday, December 1st or December 2nd with a list of projects throughout the town. If you want to add Brittany Woods, if you have a specific thing in mind, please see me after the meeting because I was uploading them. We get free t-shirts from the Philadelphia MLK Day of Service for anyone who participates. So last year we had 682 people participate in 22 projects throughout the township.
Okay.
So if there's something that you want to do in Brittany Woods, we'll circle back at the end of the meeting. We'll talk about it. Okay?
Okay, and we were also discussing power washing some of the houses that have the aluminum siding that have green stuff on it. So that was something else we were looking at. But our project so far that we've been working on, we had a meeting on Saturday. It went very well. And I just wanted to let you guys know that we have not dropped the ball and we won't. We're bound to get our neighborhood back looking nice. Okay? And thank you everybody for your help too. So you'll be seeing me and everybody else as many times as we can to come to these meetings. And can I have an agenda?
Yes.
Because I came in late. Okay, thank you very much for letting me have this time here with you guys. And Lowe's is donating the rakes and the bags for the leaves.
All right.
Okay?
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
that's it.
Before we go to the next speaker, Chief, I have a question for you and also Mr. Carlemere. One of the things I noticed when myself and Andrea and Michael and Tracy were in Brittany Woods, I noticed a large amount of vehicles either on blocks, no tags, and possibly no registration. Does the ordinance allow us to remove those vehicles?
I don't believe so. I think there's so many vehicles.
Well, that becomes an abandoned vehicle if it's not registered. So, I mean, I can take a look at it, I haven't looked at that in a while. Offhand, I would say that do not have the jurisdiction to go in and remove it. I think you can red tag it or post it. that will happen. Let me take a look at the ordinance and respond to it.
Ms. Johnson, would you agree that is a big issue there, the abandoned cars that you have?
Yes, because I had taken pictures and sent them to, I think Lieutenant Barton,
Okay.
and early in the morning, I did it at 6 o'clock in the morning, right around, anything was suspicious. And I had sent some pictures of several cars that are parked on abandoned properties, and they've been there. And then, I think the police did go out there, or code enforcement was out there, and then the cars disappeared. And then 2 weeks later, they're back. So, I just think it's an issue that there's a lot of cars that should not be in working roads.
Okay. Thank you.
They're not registered, and doesn't have, valid license and stuff like that. We're not a car dealership.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Polidoro.
Once again, Ray Polidoro, Ariel. I brought to you the article that appeared in the Courier Post back in July 27, 2014. If I may put into the record, the story was done by the Courier Post staff with the input from the Camden County officials, referring to public adjusters, restoration, and board-up companies. And I quote them, it says, they portray themselves as here to help, but they use the distress caused by the fire to prey on their victims while they are most vulnerable, said freeholder Scott McCrae, liaison to the Camden County Department of Public Safety. It quotes, state law prohibits this practice between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. within the first 24 hours of fire, officials said. Now, I only have limited time from the time I get home from work to get here to search that out. I will see what I can find, but usually the Courier Post, if they're going to state something that specific, I got to imagine that came from a state official. And again, I'll get with you on that the more that I can find out. But it would be helpful if that goes into the ordinance, which, according to the state, would keep us in compliance with the state as well and would improve the quality of what we're looking for at people's time of vulnerability.
What you just handed in is the local government ethics law, which basically governs governmental officials profiting from whatever is in the community. So I think that definitely applies. If you're looking at a local government official that is on a fire scene in his or her district, let's say, and trying to say, I'm an elected official, let me board up your property, I think the ethics law addresses that issue. The regulation as far as the hours between 6 and 8, I'll have to take a look at that to see if that is an actual legislation, because what we put in this ordinance, which were in several other towns, is that these board-up restoration companies are not permitted to be on the scene unless they have a tag that they're licensed by the municipality, so they have all the insurances and all the qualifications and licenses that are necessary to go with it, and they cannot interfere with the fire scene until the fire scene is released either by the fire chief or the police officer in charge at the time. Does not put a limit on the time. Okay, so we can check that.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Carr.
Joanne Clark, Timber Birch. I just wanted to report on that the Historic Committee had a very successful Christmas open house last Sunday.
Oh, windy.
Despite bitter cold.
I was laid up for my marathon, so sorry.
Well, those poor kids from Main Stage, the Encore, we put them in the carriage house, just get them out of the wind, but they were cold. They were there at a half hour at a time, but they did a phenomenal job. And our Santa was super. Our mayor was there, he came, so it was wonderful. I just wanted to let you know that the tavern is decorated for Christmas. It will be open this Sunday and the following Sunday, the 11th. And after which it will be closed until spring. So if you want to find something in your busy schedule, come check us out.
Thank you very much. Mr. Heimel.
Pete Heinbaum, Morningstar Court. Good evening. A couple questions. The lawsuit by the Fair Share Housing Center against Gloucester Township. What's the status of that lawsuit this time?
Well, that's not a lawsuit filed by Fair Share Housing against the Township of Gloucester. Fair Share Housing is participating in what is the results of the New Jersey Supreme Court ruling that the control now of municipal, the Mount Laurel decision, low and moderate income housing has to be administered through the courts. When that Supreme Court decision came out, municipalities had till a certain date to file for protection against builders' remedies. Okay. Gloucester Township was very proactive. We participated in the first round with COA when it was in operation. We participated in the second round with COA when it was active. And we also filed our third round participation, meeting all our Mount Laurel requirements. That's when we filed for our third round certification. That's when COA was not holding meetings, Council on Affordable Housing, and the regulations were not being redrafted, and rules were not being put together, and resulted in a litigation that went all the way up to the Supreme Court. Finally, the Supreme Court made the decision that it has to go through local Superior Court, Chancery Division's equity for administration. We then immediately filed for our builder's remedy protection, and it was granted because we have always participated. Once we filed that, it initiated the actions to start to go through the court process, because our next step was to file our fair share plan and have it approved by the courts. That's when Fair Share Housing was noticed, and Fair Share Housing now participates with that. So it's not a litigation against the township. We have always been proactive in participating with the COA litigation and our Mount Laurel obligations, and we're just going through that process. We were scheduled to have our Fair Share plan approved and accepted by Fair Share Housing and the courts. There was a builder initiated their own response after we provided everyone notice that we're ready to settle meet our fair share obligations, and it was going to be accepted by Fair Share Housing. So that put that postponement from November 16th, I believe that was the date, through now December, to give us an opportunity to address this builder that says our fair share plan is not appropriate. And that's what we're working on.
Okay. All right. Yeah, good. That was good. So meeting this obligation, is that under the purview of the Gloucester Township Housing Authority? Actually executing the plan? No.
That's all being administered through Ken Lechner's office and our experts and the courts to meet our plan of how we're going to meet our fair share plan through the year 2025.
Okay. And that's that small committee, I think, that Mr. Cardis and the mayor.
Well, that's one of the elements that
Right.
that's the abandoned neighborhood. Yeah. So that's going to be one of the elements of where we're going to identify. And that element is going to be administered through the housing authority. That's only one portion of that plan.
Okay, good. The abandoned property rehab program we started, has anything been started with that yet? Any transactions or any properties identified or anything like that?
Mr. Cardis?
No.
Not this time.
The mayor's office is scheduling another meeting with us that have been involved in, as well as the housing authority, to get it moving.
Right. So when transactions do begin, but where will those transactions occur? Like under whose budget? Which line item? Is it under the housing authority's budget or the senior center? Or when we start paying realtors and contractors and such?
It's all going to be administered through the housing authority. If you're talking about reconditioning the property,
Right.
it's going to be administered through the housing authority. I guess it's COA funds.
It is.
COA funds that the township has. There's an agreement between the township and the housing authority that we will appropriate COA funds. It's going to be in our fair share plan that we're making that commitment. And then the homes that are going to be reconditioned that are abandoned, and that's going to be administered through the housing authority. The statute says once it's reconditioned, if we follow all court approvals, then the township gets all its dollars back that it's put out, and it receives that through a sale of the property. We have to sell the property at market value. Housing authority, with the use of COA funds, can purchase that property at that value, and then they administer it as our plan.
So these COA funds, where do they reside? I'm wondering where the when we start spending COA funds, where does this spending take place?
That's in a separate fund.
It's in a separate fund. I believe there's close to $550,000 in there right now currently.
On the Gloucester Township, it's a separate fund within the Gloucester Township
Yes.
budget?
We maintain it. Yes.
Okay. Related to that walk-on borrowing resolution, we received a reimbursement from FEMA this year, didn't we? And we didn't use that to offset the borrowing?
Couldn't do that thing. We had to satisfy the lack of appropriations, the lack of money that we had because of the storm, had to be satisfied before December 31st, 2015. The only way to do that was to approach the state of New Jersey for an emergency appropriation, which after the meeting we had with them, they approved. They approved the amount that we applied for. And the way that works is the note's taken out for the full amount. That money then gets injected back into the budget to help offset some costs, not all the costs, because we had costs well in excess of what we submitted the application for. And then you have to renew that note over a 3-year period. It'll be paid off in 3 years.
I see. So the FEMA reimbursement, was that put on like an unbudgeted revenue line item? Is that where that
That
was
basically
placed?
goes to surplus.
And it'll end up, by the end of the year, it'll end up as a surplus amount
Correct.
and go into next year as a surplus amount. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the second public portion. Polling on directors.
Mr. Lefferts?
I have nothing to report, thank you.
Chief Earl?
Nothing to report, thank you.
Mr. Barolow?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Cantwell?
Nothing to report.
Mr. Cardis?
Nothing to report.
Council? Mr. Hutchison?
Thank you very much for coming here this evening and participating, Joanne, Ray, everybody else in the audience. And I recently sat through a 5-hour continuing legal education seminar on affordable housing. I can't believe how complicated that stuff is. But when I finished the seminar, I was really happy because we are in compliance. We've done everything that we were required to do, whereas some towns haven't, and they've got things to worry about. So, thank you very much for coming.
Mr. Schmidt?
I'd like to thank everyone also for coming out this evening, and thank you for your comments.
Mrs. Stubbs?
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. It's always appreciated when we see faces, and happy holidays.
Mrs. Myers? Thank everyone for coming out. Have a great week. Mrs. Strata?
Thank you, everyone, and have a good week.
Mr. Mercado?
The Blackwood Christmas Parade is this Saturday in downtown Blackwood. It starts on Church Street and will end at the outlets. That starts at 6 o'clock. Get an opportunity to please come out and support Blackwood Fire Company. And, it's a wonderful time with their parade. And the tree lighting here will take place December 11th in Veterans Park, 6:30. I think 6 o'clock, 6. If you get here at 6, you're a half hour early, I think. An interesting thing that Public Works is they repurposed the hayride that we had used for trunk or treat, and there'll be sleigh rides. So if you have any little children or adults as well, there'll be sleigh rides in addition to hot chocolate and music by Main Stage at the tree lighting on December 11th. That's a Sunday. Thank you for coming out this evening. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Have a good night.
Because I was
First, round three, 1, 2, 3.
When I got